What's happening, folks? How y'all doing today? Is anybody out there? Let's go. What's up? How you doing out there? Y'all have enough volume? It's been too long since the last time I saw y'all. So, I hope you had a good couple of weeks. I hope you were able to check out John Wooten's clinics. I hope you had fun with the other coaches and also did some homework. And if you did any of that, or none of that, I should say, if you did none at all, I hope you had a guilt free break. Woo! Someone said I should have the AC cranked up here. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. But you know what? I just wanted to represent my merch. You can check it out on my website. It's been going great. I'm so happy about this. Came from a really beautiful moment, hanging with really beautiful people. If you're not aware, this quote is actually something that I had said, similar to what I had said during my Metallica video that I did for Drumeo. And I just wanted a little more volume because I wanted to hear as much detail in the music as possible. So if you've already picked up a shirt or a sweater or some kind of swag from my website, maybe just drop it in the comments and let me know. I am Larnell Lewis, and I am your coach today. Thank you for joining me. I had a good time just kind of warming up the space a little bit and getting back down to business. So, today we're going to be talking about gear, talking shop, talking about ways to adjust things, talking about a lot of the things that I like to use. And finding out from you what you're interested in using. If you have questions about the stuff that I use and how I maybe tune certain drums, I got a few here for me. A couple of snares, a tom here that you can see. Mostly electronics I'll be using, but yeah, let's just get down to business. So for those that are new, thank you so much for being here. Someone said where to get that shirt. You can go to my website. Let's larnelllewismusic.com. LarnellLewis music.com. You can check out the shop there. Thank you very much, Aaron. Unfortunately, I don't have my word boosters with me to be able to see. But what I'll say for anyone that's new, please welcome them in the chat. For those that have been here from day one, all my day ones put number one in the chat. And of course, anybody else just kind of put a yeah in the chat as well. And if you're viewing this after the fact, let me know what would you like me to talk about in the future. I'd love to make sure that I'm actually answering questions and getting into topics and details that you find interesting. Because as much as it's about me, it's absolutely about you. It's about us, the we. I see the ones, day ones, bap, bap, bap. Day one since you joined DMAC, I will take that totally. And of course, for those that are not familiar with the platform here, if you're first or need a reminder, there is a question box to the right of the chat. So you can just hit that, type your questions in there. I will see them. I see some questions are there as well. And of course, if you like those questions or you want to see a particular question answered sooner than later, just upvote it. All right. I want to get as many upvotes as possible on questions that people have here. I see some questions about kick drum pedals and whatnot, and I would love to talk about it because I actually have one of my kick pedals here that I use for my gigs. Woo! What a day. Man. Okay. So let's do it. Now, the first piece of gear that I want to talk about, I don't have my kick cam happening, but I'm going to talk about my foot pedal. Now, I am a lover of the FP series of pedals from Yamaha. I also love the Flying Dragon pedals. If you don't know, I'm with Yamaha Electronic Acoustic, Zildjian, Evans drumheads, ProMark drumsticks, LP percussion, Prologix stick pads, and new to the family for me is Groove X. I'll be showing you a little bit of that in a second. They sent me some great goodies. But talking about the pedals first. So it for me, I've been a double chain user for a very long time. And once Yamaha came out with the FP 9500 series of pedals, which is what you've basically been seeing me use in all of my lesson videos here for coaches, that was my first love. The double chain, right? FP 9500C, and then of course the direct drive, which is what I have as my double pedal, FP 9500D. I love these pedals in particular because they are simple in design. There's not too much going on with what I have to change or alter in order to actually get my feel together in terms of the way the pedal feels. Um, and I know when I actually order it, if I'm doing a gig where I need to have backline, it's going to be there, and I know exactly what I need to do to alter the pedal. I don't have to do a bunch of manipulation. So it's a simpler version, but I love it. That's kind of like my go-to. However, new for me in the last couple months, and I've been using it on a lot of my recordings because I've been doing obviously more recording in the last year and a half, is the FP9. Now, this pedal, I got to tell you, very special. So if you love the design, they were actually getting into mimicking the look of their Yamaha motorcycles, right? So you can see this is kind of like a tire, right? Loving the chrome look, brush chrome here. Bottom, of course, nice electric blue, blues happening everywhere. Love it. But this beater is actually really special because what you're able to do is there's a little actually mechanical. I don't know if you can see it here. If I just pull it down, right? I'll pull it back up, pull it down again. Yeah, sleek aerodynamic. So I love this because once this comes down, I'm actually able to insert a couple of the weights that they have. So if we've talked recently, if you've been at my foot pedal class, I guess it was one of the last two that I had done, where we talked about foot technique. I mentioned, raising the beater height or using a heavier beater. So Yamaha actually gave me the opportunity, or actually gave everyone the opportunity, an option to add a nickel or a copper weight that both of them come in the package. And so you could just put one or two there. It's up to you. But I actually like the way this beater feels. So I don't add any weight. But if I need more power, more punch, and I want to put less effort in, just to actually get more volume out, I can definitely add that. A lot of the adjustments that I am digging as well, in the previous pedal of the FP 9500 series, in order to tighten the pedal to the bass drum hoop with the claw of the bass drum, right? This is the claw. The adjustment was underneath, right? So I'd have to reach under. Actually, no, it's on the side. Older pedals, it was underneath. They actually have a larger wing nut here, so I can actually, get to it without any trouble at all. Another beautiful thing is actually the spring tension, so I'm able to also adjust that from on top instead of needing to reach to the bottom. It's notched, right? So you can actually hear how many clicks over you've gone. And there's one little marker here as well on top, so you can pay attention to where it is and how many revolutions you've passed. There's a few other measurements, indicators. It's a beautiful pedal, and one of the features that took me a while to get used to. And when I say a while, I mean like over a year. Because now that I think about it, I've had this pedal for definitely over a year. But the longer footboard. So if I were to, compare this to my other footboard, I would say it's at least about an inch to an inch and a half longer than the pedal that I'm currently using on the bass drum. So it took me a while to get comfortable with that, with my technique, to know where I needed to place emphasis on the footboard, getting comfortable with doing my triplets, because again, for me, being used to this kind of average size pedal in terms of the footboard, there were a lot of things that I got used to, and I didn't play very many longboards. So once I got into the vibe, and it felt great, always felt great, but I I think the biggest thing for me was just adjusting to the length of the footboard. Once I got through that, it was amazing. Last thing I'll tell you, if you've seen on pedals those spikes that are near the end where you can keep the pedal from moving, they actually, instead of having them right at the end closest to the bass drum, they put them right here, closest to the heel plate. And I love that because I'm actually able to. Let me see if I can change angles. Um, I love that because I'm actually able to now lock these in, and my pedal won't fishtail on me, right? It won't be doing any of this because these spikes will just keep it in place. So, very much in love with that. Um, of course, sticks. Everyone asks about my sticks. So, I'm usually going back and forth with what I'm using. So, currently today, I'm playing an old favorite, which is the Select Balance Rebound 5A, 550 TW. So I'll put that up in the camera so you can see that. Um, Maybe I'll just turn it up a little bit so that you can see the label a little more. Yeah. So I've been in love with this stick ever since they released it a few years ago. And for me, the rebound balance is important because it's not going to put a lot of strain. I like to play with more finesse. Um, People enjoy having a heavier front-loaded stick because of the weight that they could put into the drum and for the style and for their wrists. But I came out of having a lot of wrist issues. Started when I was in college, my first year, which was 2004. So nearing about 17 years right now since that journey of working on my wrists and maintaining how everything feels. But for me, finding the right stick was important. And so it took, some time. I got adjusted to some things, but there was a point in my career where I was only playing maple sticks because I needed something lighter. And once I connected with ProMark, I was able to get right back into playing hickory sticks, which for me personally, how hard I hit, depending on the situation or where I'm placing my emphasis and force, I was blasting through a lot of those and it wasn't working for me. I still do love maple sticks. I love the tone that they give off the cymbals, especially when the diameter is wider. I get a really nice um, kind of open, airy sound. Understated, but it's still full in terms of um, the tones and everything that I'm getting out of the drum. So I used to use a maple stick, a maple hickory stick, like kind of a 7A. Then I had a maple version of that, and then I had a larger diameter version of that hickory as well. Same length, same tip. But once I started on the rebound balance for me, I didn't have to worry anymore. So still working on, finding my way through the catalog of sticks, but I bounce between these and the fire grain sticks that you often see me playing on my Drumeo videos, like the actual performance videos and lessons at Drumeo HQ. Um, but yeah, that's it for me with sticks. Another thing I want to talk about, I mentioned pedals, but I actually want to give these people a shout out. Okay, so this is Switch Kick. Um, I love the idea of these pedals, these beaters. So what you have, and you've probably seen them before, there's a bunch of these, strikers that you can actually attach. So this portion of it is what goes into your pedal. And then in a moment's notice, you could just, throw this on there, right? And then boom, there you go. So I keep this in my bag with me. I still want to get a bunch of other ends. They have like brush ends. They have like a larger stick end. They have like a leather kind of striker end, regular beater, plastic beater, a whole bunch of stuff. But what this allows is if you're in a session or you're on a gig and you need to switch sounds up really quickly, you just pop this off, pop the new one on, and away you go. They're very secure. Never had one fly out on me before. So really in love with that, and I definitely want to reach out to them. I believe they're connected to a head, like a head drumsticks. But yeah, I was able to meet up with them at an NAMM show one year, and they hooked me up with this and another beater type. But it's been great. I keep this in my stick bag, or in my pedal bag, and I flip back and forth because you never know when you need a big old fuzzy kind of bomber beater. But I got options. Okay, how you doing out there? See the comments going by. If you're watching this after the fact, let me know in the comments what is your top. Let's see, the top two most inspirational pieces of equipment that you have. You can call it your whole drum set. Maybe it's an app on your phone. Maybe it's a certain drumstick. Maybe it's a combination of sticks. Maybe it's a certain cymbal where it doesn't matter what cymbal setup you have, you got to switch that cymbal. Like everything could change, but that one stays the same. Somebody asked me what my favorite cymbal was one time. That is such a hard question to answer because it often depends on the gig I'm playing. But if I had to have one cymbal that was on the kit with me at all times, I would have to say it would be a 18 or 19 inch. Ugh, it's hard. Mm, okay, I'm gonna give you two. One thing I have to have on my kit is my stack cymbal, right? It is a 10-inch trash former, which is on top of a 10-inch A custom EFX. That is my absolute go-to. I gotta have that there. There's so much I can do with it, and it's actually taking me back to my years, like maybe like 2002, 2003, where I used to have a small, maybe 8 or 10 inch X hat that was just above my hi hat, and you know, I had like some Gibraltar clamp here, and I would just have it at every gig because it would allow me to do a bunch of other things, whether playing like a pedal with my left foot for a cowbell, or a lot of really interesting sounds with the hi hat, but then still get that thing going. Or I can maybe put something on my snare to tighten up the sound of the snare and have this higher hi hat sound. It just gave me options. And so when Zildjian came out with the Stack Effects series, totally brought me back to that time. So the stack effects for sure is a big one for me, but that 10-inch stack that you often see me playing with on my kit is in every setup. After that, I would say I need to have something with a sizzle with me. Going through college, getting into jazz music, and really observing those sounds. Riveted cymbals wasn't something I grew up with or really understood until I got to college. And once I understood how I can manipulate that symbol and realize that I can just add them to any symbol that I want, I actually have a few that I've used, ride cymbals and crashes, but a go-to for me as well is the 17-inch K Custom Trash Crash, the dry, special dry, I can't even speak. K Custom Special Dry Trash Crash, 17 with two rivets in it, one on either side of the cymbal. And I love that because it's not too much, rivets happening in the cymbal. I can lightly tap it. The cymbal is very thin, so I like thin cymbals overall as they allow me to hit what I call the sound potential a lot sooner. So I don't have to hit it too hard for it to sound like itself. Um, if it's too thick or it's like a medium heavy kind of cymbal, in order to get the crash sound that I'm looking for, I usually have to just like be smashing it. And I'm in a lot of situations where I need my cymbal volume and overall drum volume to be controlled. But it could take the hits, which is amazing, and I usually have it on the left side. That's partially inspired as well after the facts when I found out by Dave Weckl, one of my favorite drummers. I think he has a Sabian kind of 17-inch effect cymbal, which originally started off as a Zildjian Azuka cymbal. So it's Azuka cymbal line, cymbals to be played with stick and hand, created alongside Alex Acuna, an amazing percussionist. I think he may be with Sabian now, I'm not sure. But he developed that cymbal, which was, something that you could play with your hands if you needed that kind of an accent if you're playing percussion. And Mr. Weckl actually used it in his setup on the left and then created something of his own called the effects, I believe. So, yeah, but I love that concept, having that symbol right there. I can just kind of go over if I need that texture. I can, stay in the hi-hat zone on the left side of the kit. And then everything kind of gets, from light and airy to like really super aggressive China stacks on the right side. I'll quickly talk about my electronic kit. So right now what I'm using is the DTX 950 kit. all right, which formerly was known as the DTX Stream 3. I love this kit. There's so much I can do with it. The beautiful thing about it is that on each of these drums and cymbals, right? Usually not the hi hat, but these particular cymbals, the ride and crash pads and the toms, are all three zones. So I'm able to get the head sound, more of a rim shot, like if you were to hit the rim and the head at the same time. So more of an aggressive sound. And of course, the rim sounds themselves. This is a beautiful kit to teach with as well because the sound is controlled. It just takes 2/4 inch cables or one if you need to into an audio interface, and you're up and running. Recording MIDI is amazing because I'm not only able to record the onboard sounds that I've been using for a lot of these lessons, but I think I'm gonna, there we go. But I'm also able to control other sounds in the computer. So if I decided that I wanted to sample something and trigger it, which the term triggering is more so used when I'm gonna hit the drum, and maybe I can play any sound. I can play a musical note, I can play any sound effect that I choose. But it actually allows me to kind of break down barriers and just open up to a ton of new sounds, a new world, and I could still play with the feel that I'm comfortable with. So sometimes if I need to make any kind of beats or program anything, I will, go on a keyboard or like a beat pad if I have one, drum machine vibe, and just program it in, or do the clickety click click click. However, if it's something that I can actually play on the drums and I want that feel, and I'm not looking for it to, if I'm looking at for it to have more of a drum performance vibe, then I move over to this kit. And with the help of Ableton, I'm able to just drop samples onto any part of this drum kit. Now, what I love about electronic drums in general is that it does not matter what electronic kit you have. If you just have electronic drums, um, it's MIDI, right? So if it's too old to go USB, you can actually get a connection that'll go into the MIDI ports and then USB into your computer, and away you go. And again, you could still take full advantage of programs like Ableton and Max for Live and Logic and GarageBand and Cubase and Digital Performer. Like there's so many things that you can use in virtual instruments or VSTs that you can actually connect to your electronic kit and just have a blast, have a ball. So that's my electronic drums. I'm so in love with it. The DTX M12 as well is a big piece for me. I love attaching that or adding that to any kit. And of course, in the family of electronics for me as well that I carry often is the EAD10. And I love that because not only can I record audio with it, it can act as an audio interface, which basically means I connect it directly to the computer. I can open up any DAW or digital audio workstation that I want, and the sound from the microphone that I've connected onto the bass drum that picks up a 4-foot radius of my kit will actually um, make its way into the software. So I can just put this on the kit, put it into the unit, hop over, connect it to the computer, and boom, good to go. So the MIDI realm, I just am so in love with it, and Yamaha is definitely making a lot of really interesting products. So I'm very happy about that. Speaking of Yamaha, let's get to some drums. So I have a couple drums here with me, and I'm just gonna show them off. I'm not gonna play them too loud because my mic volume is a bit aggressive, or more so, I should say. It's loud enough for you to hear me talking, but if I were to slap a drum, I might distort and break something. But I'll show you anyway. First up is one of my favorites. Um, if you've seen any of my videos for my latest album, Relive the Moment, it's a Phoenix kit. This is the finish of my kit. I am in love with this. Look at that. Hmm? Just look at that. Look at that wood. Hmm? Just amazing. Just amazing. It's called textured natural ash. Okay, so if I were to raise it up a little bit, hopefully you could see it's not a glossy finish. So if you were here with me live, and you were to actually touch the drum, right? It's actually all those textures that you see. You can actually feel the grooves in those textures. Let me see if I can get another angle on this because this thing is just too beautiful. Yeah, just unbelievable. So I have a whole drum kit like that, thanks to Yamaha. 8, 10, 12 rack toms, 14 and 16 floor tom, and of course, 22 by 18-inch bass drum. And actually, it's what you call a virgin bass drum. There is no hole for the tom arm. So if I want to use this kit, I either have to use it with a rack or I have to connect my toms onto the cymbal stands, or if I'm using one rack tom, I could just put it on a snare stand. But I love this kit. For the tom heads, I'm using the UV2s on top from Evans. I love these heads. For me, it's the closest combination to what I get out of a two-ply clear head, but also gives me um, the textured options of a coated head, and they last really long. So I would totally recommend it. If you're looking for something that gives you the attitude, that round tone of a coated head, but it still has the energy of a clear head in terms of like that two-ply thickness and getting that rounded sound, fundamental sound. It's not too thin. UV2 is the way to go. Um, Using G1 on the bottom. For me, G1 heads on the bottom is a must. Um, and actually, I went through a really long journey of finding heads that worked for me. I was able to tune everything well and get the sound going. But after connecting with certain drummers, I really, really desired to have a clearer drum sound, something that had more of a sustain, where the fundamental pitch was clear. It wasn't a head that was too heavy. It wasn't a head that was too thin. And this combination of heads just allows me to get the fundamental pitch that I'm looking for. And also on any of the drums from like the 8-inch, 10-inch. Usually I use the 10 to 12 and the 16. And I have my deep snare, which I'll talk about in a second. I'm in tom one, floor tom one position. But this drum kit is amazing. If you're not aware of this kit, the Phoenix, it's the flagship kit from Yamaha. It's the top level kit that they make. We're talking about 11 plies of wood, which is pretty thick. So you can see that here, right? If you just look on the rim on the outside, all of that is wood. All of this here. And, I had a friend, actually my brother, he wanted to check the kit out, and he got a kit of his own that he was checking out, and he he liked my tuning style, so he wanted to check it out, and he got everything together, pitch match everything, and you can really hear the difference. Even though the pitch matching was perfect, you can hear the difference between something that has thinner plies versus a thicker ply drum. The sustain, the projection, the quality of the tone, right, is very important. These are things at a level of awareness for drums that I learned over time, and it came through understanding tuning. So I would recommend, if you're still in the market looking for a drum kit. As much as I would love to say everybody needs to get a Phoenix, I don't think everyone needs a Phoenix. But what I would recommend is you understand the tone that you're going for. You understand the options with drum heads. Even going back to my drumsticks, there was a while where I wasn't really liking my cymbals, and I'll be changing ride cymbals out, and I wasn't sure what it was until I changed my sticks. Something as simple as changing your drumsticks and moving across the kit and just kind of hearing how it all feels to you sonically, how it sounds to you, how it works, how you're able to move around the kit. The throw of the stick, if it's front heavy or back heavy, um, whatever it is, the material of the stick. Start with the stick. Start with the stick, and then go to the heads. If you have a decent drum kit. If your drum kit is not that great, then I would still recommend checking out some heads, but understand what you have, and then understand the combination of everything, and work it from there. You don't always have to. Thanks, Aaron, for putting the Phoenix kit in the link. Um, but yeah, don't always assume the reason why the drums don't sound the way you want them to sound is because the drums. Sometimes it's the touch and the way you hit it. Sometimes it's the musical context, so it's the wrong drum for the music. These are all things you got to consider and build on your awareness so that when you're pulling a drum, if you have maybe two or three snares and you want to get the right snare, if you need to change heads on your snare drum, whatever it is, you just want to make sure that you're paying attention to all those details. But for me, this is the best drum kit I've ever played. The tuning is so easy. Um, it holds its tuning very well. I remember during the pandemic, I had not used this kit. Obviously, at the time where we were living, I wasn't able to play acoustic drums, just my electronics, which most of you saw when I started doing Drumeo coaches. And yeah, being able to get right back in the studio to do that live drum performance of Relive the Moment and grab this kit, tune up in the studio, put new heads on it, which were the UV2s and the G1 on the bottom. And in fact, these heads have been on since then. I have nothing to complain about. It holds its tuning. The pitch, it's the way it actually controls the pitch is just a beautiful thing. So I love these drums. So much about it. I can't say enough. But we'll move on. New to the gang is this lovely beauty. All right. So this is actually a part of a full kit. If you've seen the latest kits, I love this color, first of all. I love this color. This is like a seafoam green kind of vibe. But even the texture of the finish, on the outside is just beautiful. Um, so this is the Stage Custom Hip. All right. It's from a four-piece drum kit, which is a 20-inch bass drum by 8-inch deep. This is a 13-inch snare drum by 4 inches deep. There is a 10-inch rack tom by 4 inches deep, and a 13-inch by 8-inch floor tom, but it's actually a snare drum as well. So I don't have that here. My wife and I, we share equipment, and so she actually uses this drum kit um, when she needs to do what she needs to do with her teaching. She's an amazing steel pan player. And so, um, but for gigs, once gigs start up again, you're going to be seeing me a lot with this kit. So I love it. I love it. I love it. It's all birch wood. Right now on this snare drum, and most of my snares now, I'm using the UV1 head. I'll tap this a little bit. I have this. If you've seen some of those overhead videos I've done on Instagram, this is the snare drum that I'm using. That really sharp, aggressive, like funkier snare. Um, Somebody noticed the trigger. Yes, this is a trigger. So this is the DT50S for snare, which means it's going to pick up the head, but it's also going to pick up the rim separately. So you can have two separate signals. So I can play here and get one sound, play on the rim and get another sound. So this combination for me is amazing. These triggers are really heavy duty. I toured with them when I was on tour with Quincy Jones, and they could just take a beating. It's made out of metal. It's right. So if you're playing and you misfire, you hit the trigger alone, or they get kind of bruised up, they can actually handle it. They're also meant to have the look of the absolute lugs as well for like style. But yeah, I love this snare. I've used it on a couple other recordings as well that I've had to do for like some online concerts. But this is amazing. And I'm seeing some comments in the chat. People are asking about the stage custom. Let me tell you something. Stage custom drums, to me, are consistent, they're versatile, and they come in a lot of size options and color options. Those 3 points, to me, like, make the stage custom kit one of the hardest to beat at that price level. And it's important to understand that, because if you're looking for something that can get the job done, whether you need to do a bebop gig, a hip hop gig, a rock gig, you know, more big band, some kind of a fusion thing, country, like whatever it is, they build the drums so well at that level that you can just get away with anything. For the longest time, uh, I was actually recording with a stage custom kit. I had a couple stage customs. I had Maple customs as well. But for the size options that I had, those stage customs totally worked. I had an 18-inch bass drum and a 22, and a 7-piece kit and a stage custom, and a 4-piece kit jazz kit. But I've done a ton of recordings with those. They tune well. They can take a beating. Like I said, like the finishes are amazing. Somebody mentioned that they've had their stage custom for about 20 years and they're still happy with it. Yeah, they're amazing kits. I think the important thing is, number one, drums are drums. So no matter what company, um, you've decided to invest in, drums are drums. Number one, it is the player, right, that will make the sound come out of those drums. And what do I mean by that? I mean that if the tuning is not amazing, but it feels interesting or it can work in a situation, then play that drum. You're making music, right? The companies are not making music for you. You're making the music with the gear. Number two, you want to look at a company and figure out, okay, you know, how is their maintenance? Can I call and say I need to get this repaired? What do they do for quality control? How often are they doing quality control? How often are they doing recalls on equipment? Does the equipment break down? Maybe you want to double check with a backline company and see, how well these drums actually last after being rented out and played on tours or large stages or at festivals for long periods of time. Do the research and figure out what company you want to invest in. For me, Yamaha has been the best. It's a combination of connected not only with drums and amazing hardware, but electronics as well. And until the day that changes, I am happy, believe you me. But I would just make sure that anything that you are looking to get into, do your research. Find out what your favorite drummers are playing. Ask them about how the gear is working. Speaking of asking, I know we're coming down to closing of the time. I'm looking at all these amazing questions. Keep upvoting them. I'm going to get to them in about a few minutes. And I'm just going to do a question answering blitz. All right. So that's that stage system hip snare drum, which the kit, again, is amazing. If you go on YouTube and you look for Long and McQuade, that's Long and McQuade, McQuade. There is a drum clinic that I did on this actual kit. Um, when the clinic was done, I was able to take it home because I wanted to, do some more playing and understanding and figuring out that kit. And I'm in love with it. It's amazing. So if you really want to get a sense of how this kit sounds, head over to YouTube, type my name in, and you'll see me playing the Seafoam Green 4-piece kit. Take a listen. I'm going through all my album tracks. I do an open drum solo. You can hear the tuning. You can see everything that's going down. And I think that might be the link that Aaron posted. So if you're in the link right now, if you're in the chat right now, just copy that or put it in another page. But please check that out and let me know at the bottom of this video. Come back here and let me know, what do you think of the sound? All right. Um, I'm not gonna say any more about that. I'll let you be the judge of that. But I'm into it. I'll just say that I'm into it. Of course, I get a lot of questions about my friend here. Somebody asked a question in the chat. I'm gonna ask everyone to make sure you put them in the question box. I'm gonna get to them, but I'll answer this one right now. How do you match your snare to the rest of the kit? Um, and for the genre of the music, do you have any kind of preference? Also, when would you make the skin tight or loose for the snare? I know you have two, but I'm interested about the main. Okay, so the short answer for that is I listen to, obviously, if I'm subbing on a gig, it's going to be a reference material. So I'm going to try and match my snare drum. If I am also um, in a situation where um, I am creating the music with an artist and they want me to play, I bring a few snares. I did a session on the weekend last weekend, so my drums are packed up, but I have some steel snares, some maple snares, snares with wood rims, that actually helped, to change the attack of the drum itself, because instead of doing a rim shot with a metal rim, I'm doing rim shot on wood. um, but the way I choose my snare drums is really just thinking about the music and where the drum needs to sit in the mix. So I talk to the producer, or I make a judgment call on my own, and I think about the music, and I think about that tone of the drum, like if it's sitting up really high, if it's sitting kind of in the chest, if it's sitting lower, and what that does to the music. I always think music first. So for example, if there's a lot of frequencies, or if it's not genre specific and I need to figure something out, I'm going to tune my snare in a way where it'll help push the music forward. If I need to be more sensitive, I might you know crank up the bottom head, or I might loosen it depending if I want the full tone of the drum to be lower, which is actually what I do with this snare. So this right here is a 14 in diameter by 8 inches in depth, um, recording custom snare. This is the new recording custom snare drums, not the older ones. But thankfully, they actually, even though the shape of the badge is of the current drums, the style of the label is still of the older Yamaha style, and I'm just in love with this. So let's see the best way to go about this. So as you can see, it's a little bit darker on the inside, right? The birch wood is nice and dark. I love it. Um, I believe this is a 25 or 30 strand snare wire on the bottom. Woo, that was loud. Um, I'm using 4 Moon gels currently. I don't usually use this many, but over time, for this drum in particular, it's worked. So I just do what works. I'm using a hydraulic black coated head on top. Um, People have asked me why have I chosen that color. I like the black up against the color of the tom heads that I normally use. Sometimes I use the blue. Sometimes I might use like a frosted red, but I really dig this. It works for me, and it's nice just when I'm looking at it overhead. Everyone knows that this is Larnell's kit. So here's what it sounds like. Now, what I'll say is, even if I turn the drum on and try to play the low tone, right, it's going to be hard for you to get an understanding of like what it sounds like. So what I recommend is that if you're really curious about how this drum sounds with this tuning, I'll also let you hear the bottom head too, right? You can hear it's thin. A lot of people ask me what kind of head I use on bottom, or they think they could use a G1 or an Ambassador or even an Emperor or a G2. No, don't do it. Use a snare side head. Very important. Okay? Snare side head means that the snares, when you actually turn them on, will have that sound. And like I said in my Drumeo video, if you're not getting that sound when you turn the snare on, you know what to do. Okay? Go to your local music store or head online and order something that sounds like that. Okay? All right. Ah, this is fun for me. I don't often get to talk about my gear, and this is a main reason why I like inserting these lessons, because I want to just let everybody know in a more intimate fashion what I'm using. Now, as of late, you may have been seeing me use my friend here. Now, I'm going to ask in the comments, anybody know where this drum is from. It is a drum, but anybody know where this is from? I'm curious. Anyone in the comment section? So some people are close. Someone said Africa. Yes, where in Africa? Someone said Ghana, which is a country in Africa. No. Someone said no, but I want to know. So this drum, I thought originally when it was a gift from somebody. Um, this is a goat head, right? If I wanted to, I could play it. Lost audio. Can you hear me, everybody? Can I be heard? It's back. Okay, cool. What's it called? So this drum is actually from Uganda. Okay, in Africa, and it is a Ugandan traditional drum. You can actually just Google that or YouTube it, and you'll see the way that they play it. The sticks that they're using on these drums, not normal drumsticks. The sticks are bent in such a way where it actually helps to bring out the tone of the drum. Instead of having something sharp, right? If you even hear the difference between the stick tip and the butt end of the stick, the butt end is darker. But I love this drum. I've named the drum Kiki. I originally thought it was from Kenya, so I thought, if I named it Kiki, that was cool. But it's from Uganda, and they vary in sizes. They have some that are a little bit shorter, a little bit smaller, but then you also have some big, 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 big ones, and they play a lot of amazing patterns on them. So please go check it out. Like I said, this was a gift from somebody, so I wasn't able to walk into a store and just get it. I'm pretty sure there are ways to acquire drums like these in different parts of the world, but this one's very special because it's the first one for me that I've owned that has this kind of history to it. And I'm doing my best to incorporate it in my drum kit and just use it as often as possible. Um, okay, so that's all I have for this show and tell moment. I'm going to get down to the question and answer. Let's see what you want to know. It is a beautiful drum. Thank you. Okay. Well, loads of questions, so let's get it. Vincent writes, "Hi Larnell. First of all, thanks for everything you do. You're welcome. You have been a big influence for the Swedish 18-year-old. Awesome. So to the questions. One, what is your favorite cymbal to fill on and why? Two, you have a strategy for counting while playing chop stuff. You're the best. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. You're the best too. So to answer your first question, like I mentioned before, that stack, the 10-inch stack that I have, trash former on top, and the custom EFX splash on the bottom is the best. I get a lot of mileage out of that, and I love, being able to hop to that texture because it's more raw, trashy sounding than a set of hi hats. Um, but I could layer it with another drum and get a really cool effect. So that's number one. Number two, strategies while I'm playing um, a drum fill and counting. I would say yes. I mean, I don't know if I would call it a strategy necessarily, but I was taught to always count, and by counting, I become aware of the time, and I'm less engrossed or less um, you know worried about what I'm doing on the drums. I know what I'm going to do on the drums, but if it's not in time, then it won't make sense. and I could play the drums in a whatever order that's right. But the time is important. The feel is important. The placement, how much emphasis I give dynamically, those things are important, and they come to life more for me when I'm counting. So um, I usually count and try to play my fills in a manner that, um, if I were to, for example, if I'm counting, I could say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, right? I feel like I can use the space of that count as an additional note. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So just by counting alone, I'm observing the rest. I'm observing that space and I'm giving it its time. I can count in my head and play the same fill. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? But at least, and even if I didn't do the hi-hat, I think it just helps to ground my time. So I hope that helps. Let's go to Osho. Hi, Larnell. Please discuss about the top bottom head tuning, snare wire tension on your primary snare and the secondary tom snare. Snare on the right using floor tom. So, Osho, what I'll say for time's sake, I'll let you hear what the deep snare sounds like, but I would actually recommend that you head over to my YouTube video, or even to, I think it's here on the channel. So just type in deep snare or snare Larnell, and I go into great detail about how to tune a drum like this. The one in the video I'm using is 7 inches deep, and this is 8, but the principles pretty much apply. And you're looking for a couple of things, right? You're looking for how it feels to hit, right? If I were to mute the bottom, one thing if you don't know, by the way, if you put in moon gels around your snare or around your drum, yes, it deadens the sound, but it also lowers the pitch, not only of the drum, but of that lug. So if I were to play, right? So it's adding weight, it's adding mass to that area, which is going to make it, the thicker it is or the heavier it is going to make it a lower pitch. So pay attention to that. And of course, the bottom head again, right? Compared to a drum that's higher in pitch. Just this snare. So this tightness is what I usually go for on most of my snare drums. Going higher on the snare bottom means I can get more of an aggressive tone overall. I'm usually trying to get my main snare in a position where I can play a lot of hand drum stuff. Right? And at least I can adjust and work things out that way. But hand drum stuff is important on my main snare, and again, a higher pitch going on the bottom snare. All right. Moving on. Let's see. Deuce. Nice. Deuce of hearts. Okay. So how do you know what's the right kit for your type of music? Good question. The way I judge that is I start with the genre, and usually I'm going to ask the musical director, the artist, or the producer what kind of sound I need to go for. I could make that call and decide because I am, in theory, the expert of the drums. But if I'm being called, they're calling me for my ability, skills, and access to certain drums and tuning capabilities and access to genres and ability to channel certain things, and also my ability to listen to critique and information and convert that into a drum part, and of course learning music in a very short amount of time. So all of that stuff considered, even though I'm an expert in that range, they are the expert of their song. So I'm going to ask them about their song and ask how I can assist and make it the best. Usually, if it's up to me, I'm listening for the bass tone, right? Because my bass drum is going to be in that same range. I'm listening for the keyboards because my snare is going to be sitting in that range along with the vocals. And then I think about my toms. And so it's mostly about what it is that I need to do when I'm getting around the drum kit and how I need to make all of that feel. And then cymbals as well. I'm thinking about, in the mix, is it going to be more of like a kind of 70s thing? Is it going to have like more of a dusty or more of a, you know, grungy, more of a, you know, kind of vintage sound? Is it going to be processed a certain way? These are things that I ask because at least if I could get the sound right from the source, then it makes their job a lot easier. So it's in part in a session, it's a more of a conversation. If it's a gig, usually if it's bebop or jazz, I'm usually playing an 18-inch bass drum or a 20-inch bass drum, and I usually put those options on my rider, which is my list of equipment that I'm requesting. Um, and I'll bring appropriate cymbals there. So usually a 20 or 22-inch ride cymbal that I can crash. If it's something that's more fusion-esque, it'll be like a 20-inch bass drum or mostly a 22. I find that 22-inch bass drums, I can get a lot of body and punch, but you can get a lot of punch as well and body out of a 20-inch. I currently have a 20 by 16-inch bass drum, double-headed, which means there is no porthole on there. And I wanted that option so that I had that sound option available to me if I needed to do any kind of recording that way. But yeah, I'm really just listening to the music and trying to figure out what works best. Little Sean Roberts, what piece of the kit brings out you best, or brings, I guess, the best out of me? That's an interesting question. I feel like the snare drum is a big thing for me. But I would tie it between the snare and that stack. I think just the effect and the way that I'm able to use the combination of those two things, all the sounds I can get out of the main snare, that's a really big deal. And so I would say, yeah, it's between the snare and that stack. Next question. Obi-Wan wants to know, if you could only add one more thing to your kit, what would it be? Another cymbal, another snare drum, or something else? Something else. Absolutely something else. And right now, I'm still kind of figuring out how to add to my kit. Every year, I kind of go through a couple changes. The latest change has been adding Kiki to the drum kit, so I'm still trying to figure out where that can go. Sometimes it's in my snare, deep snare position, but if I need the deep snare, I'm probably going to put it to my left. But then I got to get used to playing it over here, and I want to incorporate it in my kit a little bit more. Um, but right now, I'm looking into adding other kind of percussion type elements, things that can, have like a double kind of meaning or crossover into more of a realm that might be in the Brazilian or Cuban or even West African percussion zone. And of course, I'm just looking for other sounds that can take me there because I have the electronics, I can go anywhere with those, but I like acoustic percussion like instruments because I can, put my hand on it and affect it, for the situation very naturally as a response to the music. Um, I do desire some other symbols, like more symbols, certain symbols, but I'm good where I am. I think I get a lot of mileage out of my setup for a lot of different genres of music. So that was a big thing for me. And my kit setup, having the two rack toms up top, the deep, 16 floor, and my deep snare, of course, where I could turn it off and do that kind of floor tom sound. I think just multifunctioning equipment is important. That way I can always, I can go to like playing jungle and go from jungle to like, huge, like, Abe Laboriel Jr., like humongous sound, then like head into like, a snarky thing. And then, you know, hop into something that's a little more like Dennis Chambers, and then it's like I can just hop around and still find my way. Go to a bebop thing, go to like whatever it is, more orchestral. I could just kind of go wherever I want, and I don't have to change anything. Maybe just like the flick of this, the flick of that. But that's what I'm looking for out of my drum set. So to be continued. Um, let's see. Is there DMAC writes? Is there anything special you learned from touring with Quincy Jones? Oh, I learned too many amazing things from that experience. One was no matter how high level you are, conversations are conversations, and Quincy Jones is a great conversationalist. He knows how to draw you in. He knows how to make you feel welcome. He knows how to, you know, still impart wisdom, but still, speak to you in a manner where you can find value in what it is that you offer. So he's like, higher up, higher up, but we could still have a conversation. And even though I acknowledge where he is, he's not in that conversation to look down on me. At least the times that I got a chance to talk to him. Um, yeah, and then also too, parts are important. Parts are important because they give the energy of the record. And so if you play the part, you're really locking in. But then also understanding how to be a little bit freer or liberal with that part too. But there are a lot of lessons, but I think there's just a lesson on humanity. That was the biggest thing that I learned from that experience. Um Mattia, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Maybe it's two pieces of gear I would like your thoughts on. What would you value in a snare drum, and what do you value in a kick drum pedal? Okay, so what I value in a snare is that while it's on, there are a ton of sounds. While it's off, there are a ton of sounds, and it's the closest thing to a lead drum in a percussion ensemble. So I value that, centered around a lot of the music that I play. The snare drum does have that liberal kind of lead role where it's doing a lot of the talking. So the groove is happening, but I can free up on the snare, or I could lay it down and then allow other drums to speak as well. So I still get that kind of percussion ensemble energy, or at least that's what I impose on the drums and in music. So I value it because of all the drums, it's the one that has like a dual identity that's it just kind of expands exponentially because I'm able to turn the snares on or off. And of course pitch bend the drum as well, and I spend a lot more time there on that drum too. We're used to the acrostic sounds. There's just so many things, and it's right in the center, so both hands have access, so I can play it and feature it however I want, put anything on top of it. It's just there are too many functions, too many sounds you can pull out of it. So that's that. And what do I value in a kick drum pedal? um what I value in a good kick drum pedal is when I don't notice it. When I'm able to play my, jump into my technique, play patterns, and I don't have to think about the pedal. Like it's the last thing I want to think about. I don't want to think about, oh, this feels a little chunky here, this is a little heavy here. It's sluggish when I get up to this speed. No, I don't want to think about any of that. I just need to go. In fact, that's my rule for all my drums and cymbals and gear. If I need to think about it, I'm questioning it. But if I can just express and be free because I've built a relationship with the sound and the tuning and how that affects the music, and I can, again, use that word impose or, make it do what I want it to do without thinking twice, that's where I want to be. It's a good question. Heinz asks, any unique insight about the hi hat in general? Thanks. Yes. So what I would say is, be aware of your hi hat sound. If you're playing groove music, you want to pick the right hi hats because, they're going to get picked up not only in the hi hat mic but also in your overhead microphones. So you want to pay attention to that. And then you want to match them with your cymbals. So you're looking for, if your hi hats are really dry. I mean, you could do whatever you want, but the cymbals that you're going to be playing on the most, you want to pay attention to how that sounds under the microphones, even if you just record it with your phone, if that's possible. Another thing as well that a lot of people don't pay attention to is there is usually on the hi-hat stand an adjustment for the spring tension. I personally like to go to the lowest spring tension within reason, so that I'm not fighting the hi-hat, and I can execute my technique comfortably and with ease. I hope that answers the question. There's another question from Mattia. He said, actually, another question too. What do you value in your in ears as well? What I value for in ear monitors is, can I get the low frequency range that I would get from a sub speaker? Can I get that in my in ear monitors? because if I'm using in-ear monitors, the whole point is so I don't have to use a sub. When touring with Quincy Jones, I had a set of in-ears that, I lost mine, so I had to pick up a last minute pair, and they weren't sealing properly in my ears, so I had to get a sub, an 18-inch sub behind me, so that I could still get the body of the whole entire kit. That I didn't like that because that could compromise the recording depending on how loud I have it, and we were in arenas. That was the TV broadcast that we had done in Paris, and so for me, once I can have enough drivers in the inner monitors, I mean, to be honest, 4 drivers is enough to get the range that I'm looking for personally. But I would love to work with more drivers and work with a balance of sound with an in-ear company. 64 Audio is really the company I want to connect with, so we'll see what happens. CTM also is a great company for in-ear monitors, so we'll see what happens there. I'm currently using the Shure E215s. Those cost about 100 and maybe under $200 Canadian. Um, they have the 315s as well, so I'm blanking on which one is which. But I have the 215s, and those are really good in-ear monitors. I use those at Drumeo often. I just haven't figured out the insert part to find the best one, so it's not coming out of my ear constantly. But yeah, if it stays in my ear, gives me the low end that I need, and I can ride it at a lower volume for a long period of time, and I don't experience ear fatigue. That's what I'm looking for out of in-ear monitors. Next question. Let's see if everyone is still with me. Are you with me? Are you with me, everyone? Let me know. I'm just kind of like blasting through as many of these as possible. With me. Awesome. Okay. I'm going to ride these out. I'm going to try and get through all these, and then we're going to say bye-bye. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. Saxton Hill writes, what bearing edge do you prefer on a wooden snare? Okay, so I'm going to be honest. I do not know that much about bearing edges and how they work for snares. I'm aware that there are different shapes, whether they are rounded, which I think is more of a vintage type sound, or something that's maybe more aggressive that you might find on a metal snare, or like more modern wooden snares. I think that's about I could be wrong if that's a 45-degree angle. That's a study for me that I'm going to be getting more into now that I have a space where I can play my drums under a microphone and not worry about taking up time. Because if you're not aware, my home experience has been playing electronic drums. And when I get to play acoustic drums, I'm on the gig. So it's very challenging to, compare and contrast a lot of things. And I'm usually just grabbing the drum tone wise that works for me, tune it the way I need to, and get in, and then just go home, and then I'm back to you know good old faithful. So that's going to be my homework, working on bearing edges. But I'm pretty sure there are others on the platform as far as the coaches that can give a lot of insight and information. I think what I'm looking for is a snare drum. First of all, the size I love is 13 6.5 and a brass. That's what I've grown up with. I'm still kind of feeling that out, but I have one of those and I love it. And the recording custom snare specifically, and I just, for me, out of my snare, I need aggressive, sharp attack. But I love having a fundamental pitch that sits well, um, and a sensitivity when I'm playing at lower volume. So that's a combination of a lot of things. So unfortunately, I can't answer that question, but hopefully I can answer that pretty soon. Let's see here. Arnav writes, sounds great. I wish I could have like I guess have the snare. I'm not, if you're not being too greedy, no, it's all good. I have one snare, which is Pearl Road Show snare. Got it from Pearl Road Show drum kit. I like my snare. I'm glad it looks great, but I need to tune too much to get at least a great sound. Okay, took me 3 days to tune it properly. Any advice to get a great sound from the drum kit, if it's the cheapest drum set also? Okay, so I would recommend understanding your drum and trying a couple of different heads, um, because sometimes one head doesn't work. Like if you use a UV2 on all your toms, that might not work for all of them for the sound you're going for. I think you have to understand the sound you're going for, and also understand tuning techniques. Sometimes it's a matter of, understanding how to address the drum. I could tell you how I tune my drums, And I think the piece that's going to be missing is the sensor on the inside of the mind for you, that tells you that you've arrived to that sound, or that when you touch the drum, you know that you've arrived to the feel. So I would say just spend time. If you spent 3 days on your snare, spend another 3 days on your snare. Spend a week on your drums. Detune them. Spend another week. I think this is something I've heard Benny Greb talk about. Practice tuning. Practice understanding how to feel the tuning out. Understand all of that stuff and just get in deep. Okay? I hope that answers that question. Melwin writes, Larnell, I've got to say, I really look forward to your lessons during the week. So last week was long. Could you talk a bit more about your footboard height from your pedal technique? I've not been able to get a clean double stroke when going faster. Was wondering if I have footboard height set wrong. So the short answer is, when it comes to the footboard height, um, I think the thing you want to address, or just make sure you're addressing, is your foot is the first thing. And when you're playing, can you actually get around with your foot to the different parts of the footboard? Right? Try tapping on the ground. If the footboard is too high for me, sometimes depending on the pedal, it means that the beater's too far back. The beater gets caught in my pants, no good. If it's too low, that means I don't have enough space, right, to actually get good energy and sound out of the beater. And if the beater's too far back while the footboard is too low, then I'm going to end up going here before the beater even hits the bass drum. So it's a couple of things in terms of the sound. But I would kind of maybe say this is usually where I like to have my pedal in terms of the footboard height. Not trying to manipulate it much more beyond that. But just basically, if I can hit the bass drum in that range and still have a little more, I'm good. If I'm getting into this range, I'm usually just looking out for if I'm making that sound by pressing the pedal. Last question, and this is the first to answer all of them. Do you adjust the pitch of your toms to match the bass guitar pitch? And the short answer is no. I try to get the best sustain out of the drums. And working along with the sound engineer in studio, they'll let me know if it's sustaining too long for the music, or if it's too short for the music. And pitch wise, if there's an issue with pitch in the bass, I will either just not play that drum, or I will try to tune in a lower way or a higher way just to get out. But keeping the intervals of the tuning far enough apart so when I play them together, even though it's an indefinite pitched instrument, I don't have any issues. So I hope that answers that question. That's everything, everybody. I just want to say y'all are amazing. Thank you so much for hanging out. Um, Tune in next week. We'll get everything cracking. You're going to see a new list of topics, some old ones, some new ones. But please, if you're watching this after the fact, this was a nice lengthy video, so I hope you got a lot of information which made up for not hanging last week. But throw your questions below. I'm scanning, I'm answering as often as I can. And until next time, be good and ask nicely. All right. Peace.